They tried to kill her after rejecting an arranged marriage. One human fights back. 3 sons, no mercy, one mistake. Celira was supposed to be ash by now, bones bleached white under alien heat, a lesson carved into sand that no one would remember. Instead, she was still breathing, barely. The desert of Karos 9 didn't forgive weakness. 3 burning suns cooked the ground into cracked glass. Wind screamed across the wasteland like it wanted to strip flesh from bone. Nothing lived here, nothing survived. Except her. For now. Celira lay half-buried in black sand and ash. Her violet blood had stopped flowing hours ago, baked into powder by the heat. One leg twisted at an impossible angle, ribs cracked like broken pottery. Each breath felt like swallowing fire. Her eyes stared at the burning sky, but she didn't see it anymore. Her mind drifted somewhere else, somewhere cold and quiet. She remembered the ceremony hall, gold walls, silent faces, her mother looking away. She remembered the elders speaking her fate like it was already written. You will bond with Commander Vassan of the Iron Moons. This union brings power. You will obey. She remembered opening her mouth. One word, simple, final. No. The room had frozen. No one said no to the Kevi clans. No one refused an arranged bonding, especially not a daughter born to be traded like currency. But Celira did. And they made her pay. They beat her in the city square, in front of everyone. The elders wanted witnesses. They wanted fear. They broke her leg with a metal rod, cracked her ribs with boots. Then they dragged her outside the shields, beyond the walls, into the killing heat of Karos 9. Let the sons judge you, an elder had said. Then they left. No trial, no mercy, just death slow and certain. Now Celira waited for the end. Her lips were cracked and bleeding, her throat burned. Thoughts came slow, like drowning in sand. Maybe dying wasn't so bad. Maybe it was better than going back. At least she had said no. At least she had chosen. Then, footsteps. At first she thought it was her mind breaking, heat madness, hallucination. But the sound came again, heavy boots, crunching across glass sand, getting closer. Celira tried to open her eyes. The light stabbed like knives, but she forced them open anyway. A shadow fell over her face, tall, broad, blocking the sun's. For the first time in hours, her burning skin felt cool. Well, a voice said, deep, rough, amused. You're still alive. That's inconvenient for whoever left you here. The accent was strange, wrong, not Kevi. Human. Celira's heart stuttered. Humans were rare in this sector, dangerous, unpredictable. The Kevi elders warned against them. They don't understand our ways. They don't respect order. Why was one here? She tried to speak. Her throat made a dry, hissing sound. The human knelt. His armor was battered, mismatched, held together with tape and wire. A faded earth symbol was scratched into his shoulder. One sleeve was burned through. His face was weathered, scarred by years of hard living. One eye glowed faint amber, cybernetic. The other, fully organic, studied her with sharp focus. He didn't ask permission. A canteen appeared. Water touched her cracked lips. Celira flinched, then drank like a dying animal. Water spilled down her chin. She coughed violently, lungs struggling to remember their purpose. But it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever tasted. Easy, the human said, voice surprisingly gentle. I've got you. No one had said those words to her in so long. She focused on his face through blurred vision. Why, she rasped, why help? The human glanced around the empty wasteland, then back at her. Because leaving someone to die like this is wrong, he said simply, and because humans have a really bad habit of ruining things for bad people. He scanned the horizon with his cybernetic eye. It whirred softly, reading data she couldn't see. Besides, he added, storms coming, acid wind. You've got maybe an hour before it melts you into soup, so let's move. Before Celira could respond, he slid an arm under her shoulders. Pain exploded. She screamed. White-hot agony tore through her broken body. Her vision went black at the edges. I know, the human said quietly. I'm sorry, but we don't have time. He lifted her like she weighed nothing. His armor servos whined with effort, but he didn't stop. He carried her across the burning sand toward a distant structure, some kind of old listening post, half buried and forgotten. The wind picked up. The air tasted like acid and burning metal. They reached the shelter just as the first drops began to fall. Each drop hissed where it hit the ground, eating through stone. Inside, the human laid her on a thermal blanket. His movements were fast, practiced. He sealed the door. The hiss of corrosive rain grew louder outside, drumming against metal like angry fists. He pulled out a med kit, battered, military grade. His hands moved with precision, splint for her leg, foam injections to seal internal bleeding, then a syringe, glowing faint blue. Human painkillers, he said, illegal in most systems, but effective. He injected her. The pain didn't vanish, but it dulled, became distant like a bad memory instead of a living nightmare. Celira stared at the ceiling, chest heaving. Her body trembled. She was alive. Against all logic, against all odds, alive. You shouldn't exist anymore, she whispered. The human sat back, wiping his hands. He began cleaning an old rifle, checking the charge pack with the ease of long habit. Funny thing, he said without looking up, people keep telling humans that we're still here. Silence settled between them, only the storm outside and the soft hum of heat lamps. Who are you? Celira finally asked. Eli Ward, he said, independent surveyor, which is a fancy way of saying I walk into places smart people avoid and hope I walk back out. Why were you here? Mapping mineral deposits, he shrugged. Boring work. Then I saw your heat signature on my scanner, thought it was debris at first, then it moved. He glanced at her, one human eye, one glowing amber lens. Glad I checked. Hours passed. Celira drifted in and out of fevered sleep. When she woke again, the suns outside had shifted lower. Eli sat across from her, rifle across his lap, staring at the door like he was waiting for something. They'll come, Celira said quietly. Her voice was stronger now. The elders, Commander Vasson, they won't allow this. Eli's expression didn't change. Good, he said, saves me the trouble of hunting them down. Celira blinked. You don't understand. The Kevi control this entire system. They erase people who defy them. Eli finally looked at her. His gaze was steady, unbothered. So did a lot of empires, he said. Didn't end well for them either. Silence. Then Celira asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why did you save me, really? Eli set the rifle down. Leaned forward. Because, he said slowly, where I come from, leaving someone to die because they said no to being owned. That's the kind of thing humans go to war over. Celira's breath caught. Why did you refuse? Eli asked. She swallowed hard. Her voice came out quiet but fierce. Because my life is not a treaty. Eli nodded once, like that was the only answer that mattered. Then you picked the right species to collapse next to, he said. Humans have a very long tradition of hatting people who treat lives like property. Outside, the storm suddenly stopped. Then came a new sound. Engines. Loud, close, circling. Celira's heart slammed against her ribs. They're here. Eli stood slowly, calm, focused. He walked to his pack and pulled out a small device, a battered transmitter covered in scorch marks and jury-rigged modifications. What are you doing? Celira's voice shook. Eli's smile was cold, sharp as a blade. Calling for backup, he said. Humans don't travel alone anymore. The shelter shook as a heavy ship passed overhead. Shadows moved outside the windows. Celira realized something then, lying broken on that thermal blanket. The people who left her to die had made a terrible mistake. They assumed no one would care. They assumed she'd be forgotten. They had never met humanity. And far above Caro's 9, in the cold dark of space, unknown ships were already changing course. The commander arrives. Laughter through a loudspeaker, the worst sound in the universe. It crackled with static, harsh and proud, like the speaker enjoyed the taste of fear on his tongue. Outside the listening post, engines hovered low. They threw clouds of ash and glass sand against the metal walls. The sound was deafening, a mechanical roar meant to terrify. Celira pushed herself up on one elbow. Pain still lived in her ribs, but the human medicine made it bearable, distant, like watching someone else hurt. Eli Ward didn't move from his position near the door. He simply reached over and turned down the volume on the jury-rigged receiver. Like someone insulting him was nothing more than an annoying advertisement. "You shouldn't move," Eli said, not looking at her. His eyes stayed locked on the scanner in his hand. Green dots circled the building. 12, no 15, Maury arriving. "They'll break in," Celira whispered. Her throat was still raw. Eli's cybernetic eye flickered as it processed tactical data. "They'll try." The loudspeaker buzzed again. This time the voice spoke in the Kevi tongue, deep, cold, familiar. "Celira." Her stomach dropped. She knew that voice. "You will crawl out and beg forgiveness," the voice continued, each word deliberate. "You will accept the bond, or your death will be made useful as an example." Celira's hands trembled, not from fear, from rage. That voice belonged to Commander Vasson, the war leader from the Iron Moons, the man her elders had promised her to, the man she had refused. He was famous across 3 systems, famous for winning battles by leaving survivors alive just long enough to tell others what he did to them. He didn't just conquer, he taught through terror. And now he was here, for her. Eli tilted his head, listening to the tone, even though he didn't understand the words. "That's your guy?" he asked. Celira's voice came out flat, dead. "That's him." Eli sighed like he'd just been handed an annoying repair job. "He's got the voice of someone who thinks the universe owes him obedience." Despite everything, Celira almost laughed. It was bitter, broken, but real. "He'll burn this place to the ground," she said. "He has authority, ships, soldiers. You're one man with old armor and a broken transmitter." Eli finally looked at her. His human eye was warm. His cybernetic one glowed cold amber. "Authority isn't magic," he said quietly. "It's just what people agree to fear." Before Celira could respond. Slam! The metal door shuddered. Something heavy hit it from outside, a battering ram or a plasma hammer. Slam! Again, harder, the frame groaned. Eli stepped calmly to the door. From his pack, he pulled out a small pad, no bigger than his palm, and pressed it against the door frame. A soft chirp sounded. Then he pulled out a thin strip of gray paste. He worked quickly, spreading it in a careful line around the door's seam. His movements were practiced, efficient. Celira stared. "What is that?" "Old Earth trick," Eli said, wiping his fingers on his pants. "Reactive bonding gel, hardens like rock when it hits air pressure differential." He stepped back, admiring his work. "They can knock all day if they want." Outside, voices rose, angry, frustrated. Boots crunched on glass sand, tools scraped against metal. Someone started hammering. Celira's heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her already broken ribs. "You're delaying them," she said. "But why? You can still leave through the back vent. Slip away, you owe me nothing." Eli walked back to his pack. He pulled out a second device, smaller than the transmitter, but heavier. It looked like a broken piece of machinery, wrapped in wires like veins around a metal core. He set it gently on the floor between them. "Because," he said, meeting her eyes, "humans have a rule, not official, not written down anywhere, but it's in our bones." Celira waited. Eli's voice dropped, serious now. "When someone tries to make a person into property, he said slowly. We get stubborn. Slam! The door shook again, the gel held. Through the tiny reinforced window, Celira saw them gathering. Kevi raiders, tall, armored, their skin like polished stone in shades of deep violet and grey. Their helmets had narrow slits that made them look like predators with no eyes. They carried shock spears and plasma cutters, military grade. And at their center stood Commander Vasson. He was larger than the others. His armor was decorated with pale bone markings, trophies from conquered enemies. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a man who had all the time in the world. He lifted one hand. The raiders stopped instantly. Vasson turned toward the listening post, slowly, like he was savoring the moment. Then he spoke again, this time in trade language, so Eli could understand. Human. The word dripped with contempt. Step away, this is Kevi law, that female is clanbound. She belongs to the Iron Moons, you are interfering. Celira felt her throat tighten at that word. Belongs. Eli leaned close to the window. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Yeah, see, that's where we disagree. Vasson's posture changed, a slight tilt of the head, curiosity mixed with irritation. You are a lone off-worlder, Vasson said. You cannot fight a clan. Eli smiled, small, sharp. I'm not alone. As if on cue. Beep. Eli's transmitter let out a short, sharp sound. A signal received. Celira's eyes went wide. They answered. Eli checked the small screen. His smile grew. They did. Outside, Vasson raised his hand again. A raider stepped forward with a plasma cutter, industrial strength, designed to slice through starship hulls. He placed the glowing edge against the door. The bonding gel began to smoke, sparks flew, the metal beneath glowed red-hot. Celira's chest tightened. Eli. Stay behind me, Eli said, stepping between her and the door. He didn't sound heroic. He sounded annoyed, like a mechanic dealing with a broken engine he'd fixed 100 times before. The plasma cutter whined. The door began to buckle. Then, the world outside changed. A deep, rolling thunder shook the air, not from the acid storm which had passed hours ago. From the sky itself. The raiders paused, confused. Vasson's head snapped upward. Celira followed his gaze through the window. And her breath stopped. A ship was descending. Not Kevi, human-made. It came down like a falling star, sleek, dark, with engines that roared like caged beasts. It didn't hover politely like Kevi ships. It didn't ask permission. It slammed into the sand half a kilometer away, throwing up a massive wall of dust and debris. The raiders stumbled back, startled. And then, Maury lights appeared above. Another ship. Then another. Then another. A small fleet. Celira's voice came out barely a whisper. How? Eli's tone was calm, matter of fact. Humans are everywhere, he said. You just don't notice us until it's too late. Vasson barked orders. Raiders scrambled into defensive positions, weapons raised toward the sky. From the first human ship, a ramp dropped. Figures marched out. Humans in exoframes, heavy armor, carrying weapons that looked well-used and brutal. Their gear wasn't polished or ceremonial, it was practical, scarred, lived in. These weren't parade soldiers. These were professionals. At their front walked a woman, shaved head, long coat over tactical gear. She held a datapad in one hand and a rifle in the other. Like both were equally important. She stopped, surveyed the Kevi raiders with cold, calculating eyes. Then she spoke into an amplifier. Her voice carried across the desert like a command from the gods. This is Captain Mara Cade of the independent human vessel Cinder Knife. She paused, let the silence settle. We received a distress signal from Eli Ward. Her gaze locked onto Vasan. Any of you want to explain why you're hunting an unarmed civilian? Vasan stepped forward, pride and rage warring in his posture. This is not your matter, human. Leave or be removed. Captain Cade laughed. Once short, without humor. Removed by who, youth? She tapped her datapad casually. I'm reading multiple violations of interspecies conduct codes here, forced bonding, assault, attempted execution without trial. Vasan's voice sharpened, our laws. Mara's eyes went cold. Don't care. The two words hung in the hot air like a blade. Vasan's eyes flicked to the human fleet hovering above, then to the exo-framed soldiers standing ready on the sand, then back to the listening post. As if realizing, for the first time, that his prey had become a trap. Eli stepped out of the listening post, hands visible, but his rifle was slung and ready. Celira stayed in the doorway, half supported by the wall. When Vasan saw her, alive, rage twisted his face. But Celira met his gaze and forced her voice to carry. I refuse you, she said clearly, loudly. I refused before, I refuse now. Vasan moved toward her instinctively. Click. Every human weapon locked into firing position. The sound was soft, almost polite. But it was a promise. Vasan stopped. Captain Mara looked at Celira, her expression softened just a little. You're the one they tried to bury. Celira swallowed, yes. Mara nodded, then turned back to Vasan. Here's how this goes, she said. You step away, you take your raiders home, and you tell your elders that if they keep doing this. She gestured to Celira. Humans will show up every time. Her voice dropped. And next time, we won't be so polite. Vasan's jaw tightened. He was calculating now, weighing pride against survival. You think you can control us, he hissed. Eli answered before Mara could. No, he said calmly, we think we can stop you. Vasan's cybernetic eye glinted. This female will bring war. Eli's voice was ice. Then you should have thought about that before you tried to make her a prisoner. Silence stretched. Then slowly, Vasan raised his hand. Celira's muscles tensed. But instead of signaling attack, he signaled retreat. The raiders backed away in tight formation. Pride held their posture, but fear lived in their steps. Vasan didn't leave immediately. He stared at Celira, like carving her face into memory. This is not finished, he said. Celira's voice was steady. It is for me. Vasan turned, walked away. The hovercraft lifted off, engines roaring, and the raiders vanished into the shimmering distance. Silence fell. Celira swayed, and Eli caught her before she collapsed. Captain Mara approached, eyes scanning Celira's injuries with professional concern. Eli, she said, you always find trouble. Eli shrugged. Trouble finds me, I just don't ignore it. Mara looked at Celira again. You're safe now, for tonight at least. Celira stared at the humans, scratched armor, tired faces, steady hands. You came for me, she said quietly, almost disbelieving. Captain Cade's voice softened, but stayed firm. We came because you're a person. She paused. And humans, we have a problem with people being treated like objects. Celira felt something crack inside her. Not bone, not pain, but the wall of hopelessness she'd carried for so long. She wasn't alone anymore. But she also knew the truth. Vasan would not accept humiliation. The elders would not forgive a public refusal backed by outsiders. This was only the beginning. And somewhere far away, on the Iron Moons, Vasan was already planning his revenge. Humans don't travel alone. The human ships didn't leave, that was the problem. Every protocol, every tactical manual, every war the Kevi had ever fought said the same thing. After the confrontation, enemies retreat, they regroup, they negotiate, they posture from a safe distance. Humans did none of that. The Cinder Knife and her sister ships settled into a loose orbit around Caro's 9 like they were parking for a casual visit. No aggressive formations, no weapon locks, no threats. They just stayed. And that silence was louder than any war cry. Across the Kevi system, communication channels exploded. Emergency councils convened, military advisors argued, diplomats panicked, trade ministers calculated losses. Because humanity had just done something unthinkable. They had interfered in Kevi internal law, publicly, without apology. And now they refused to leave. Celira watched the human fleet from the observation deck of the Cinder Knife. Her legs were still wrapped in healing mesh, synthetic fibers that pulsed with soft blue light, knitting bone and tissue back together. Her body was weaker than it had ever been. But her spirit burned hotter than the 3 suns of Caro's 9. For the first time in her life, the future was not already decided by someone else. Eli stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes on the stars. His cybernetic eye whirred softly as it tracked ship movements. "They're arguing right now," he said casually. Celira glanced at him. "Who?" "Everyone." Eli's smile was small, amused. "Elders, commanders, lawyers, politicians, everyone who thought they had control." "Why?" Celira asked. Eli turned to her. His human eye, warm brown, lined with years, met hers. "Because we don't play the same games," he said. "We don't respect traditions that hurt people, and we don't fight the way others expect." Below them, in the ship's massive hangar bay, humans worked. But they weren't preparing for battle. Not the kind the Kevi understood, anyway. Engineers modified cargo drones, adding strange sensor packages and communication arrays. Programmers hunched over screens, rewriting navigation software with frantic focus. Mechanics welded asymmetrical structures onto shuttle hulls, shapes that made no tactical sense. Celira had asked Captain Mara once what they were building. Mara's answer had been simple. Options. The Kevi response came 3 days later. A formal transmission, high priority, encrypted with ceremonial codes that hadn't been used in generations. The main screen in the Cinder Knife's bridge lit up. Elder faces appeared, ancient, stern, offended by the very existence of humans in their space. They wore traditional robes, deep violet and silver, marked with clan symbols that stretched back centuries. Their eyes were cold, entitled. "You harbor a criminal," one elder said. His voice crackled with age and authority. "She violated binding law." Celira stood beside Captain Mara on the bridge, her spine straight despite the pain, refusing to hide. Mara's voice was calm, professional, but underneath it ran a current of steel. "She violated ownership," Mara replied evenly. "There's a difference." The elders bristled, their faces darkened with outrage. "Your species does not understand our culture." Mara nodded slowly, like she was considering the point. "We understand it just fine," she said. "We just don't accept it." Silence. The kind that crackles before lightning strikes. Then the threats came. Economic sanctions, military retaliation, severed trade agreements, spiritual curses that meant nothing to humans but carried weight in Kevi society. The transmission ended with a final warning. "Leave our space or face consequences." The screen went dark. Eli exhaled slowly. "Yeah, that went about how I expected." Celira looked at him, chest tight. "They will come with force." Eli's cybernetic eye flickered. "They already are." He was right. Within hours, sensors confirmed it. Iron Moon warships were moving. Not toward the human fleet directly, that would be too obvious, too aggressive. Instead, they moved toward nearby targets, trade lanes, neutral stations, colonies with no defenses. A pressure tactic. A way to show strength without direct conflict. A message, see what happens when you defy us. They're trying to make you leave, Salira said bitterly. Mara shook her head, eyes scanning tactical displays. No, they're trying to make us react. Salira frowned. So what do humans do? Mara's smile was sharp, thoughtful, almost predatory. We do something worse. What followed confused every intelligence service in the sector. The human ships are split up. No battle formations, no defensive lines, no military logic that made sense to anyone watching. Instead, they moved into civilian space. Trade hubs, communication relays, data stations, information networks. They didn't attack anything. They talked. Human diplomats, official and otherwise, began streaming messages across dozens of languages, broadcasting on open channels, sharing files, leaking documents. Evidence of Salira's attempted execution. Medical scans showing her injuries. Witness accounts from traders who saw her dragged beyond the city shields. Kevi legal records pulled from black market archives by hackers who were unofficial, deniable, and very effective. Old files were opened, quietly leaked to neutral worlds. Stories spread like wildfire. A noblewoman beaten for refusing marriage. A system that treated lives like currency. A council that punished choice. The Kevi had ruled through silence for centuries. Humans shattered it in days. Trade guilds began asking questions. Neutral species demanded investigations. Smaller clans within the Kevi system grew nervous. Because suddenly, the world was watching. And the Kevi couldn't control the narrative anymore. On the bridge of the Cinder Knife, Salira watched the flood of messages scroll across screens. Her hands trembled. Not from fear. From something else. Hope. They're listening, she whispered. Eli stood beside her, arms crossed. They always do, eventually. Captain Mara approached, datapad in hand. Her expression was focused, calculating. Trade routes are slowing, she reported. 3 minor clans have filed formal complaints against the Iron Moons. 2 neutral stations have closed their docks to Kevi military ships. She looked at Salira. You're becoming a symbol. Salira swallowed hard. I didn't ask for that. No one ever does, Mara said gently, but here we are. Far away on the Iron Moons, Commander Vasson stood before the Council of Elders. His armor was repaired, polished, but his pride was cracked. The humans poison minds, he snarled. They make lies sound like truth. An elder leaned forward, eyes glinting with cold fury. Then crush them. Vasson's smile was grim. I intend to. The trap was set carefully. 3 days later, a distress beacon appeared near a mining outpost on the edge of the system. Human-coded, urgent, panicked. A small human shuttle drifted nearby, hull scorched, engines failing, life support critical. Too easy. Eli stared at the sensor readout aboard the Cinder Knife, eyes narrowed. They're watching to see if we take the bait. Mara folded her arms. We will. Salira's breath caught. That's suicide. Mara's voice was calm, certain. No, that's teaching. The shuttle carried no weapons, no shields. Just a skeleton crew. And something hidden deep in its cargo hold. When Vasson's warship intercepted it, he felt victory for the first time since the desert. Board them, he ordered. Take the humans alive. Kevi soldiers cut into the shuttle with plasma torches. They stormed inside, shock spears ready. And found nothing. No crew, no fear, no resistance. Just empty corridors. Then the lights went out. The shuttle exploded. Not outward. Inward. A controlled implosion that collapsed spacetime just enough to trap Vassen's boarding party in a gravity well they couldn't escape. Not a weapon of mass destruction. A weapon of humiliation. Across the sector, every human channel lit up simultaneously. Captain Mara's voice carried clearly, calmly. This is a demonstration, not an attack. We can do worse, we choose not to. Aboard his warship, Vassen roared in rage. His elite soldiers vanished from sensors, alive but imprisoned in a pocket of warped space that would release them in exactly 12 hours. Unharmed, but captured. The message was unmistakable. Humans could strike anywhere. Humans could stop anytime. Humans were choosing restraint. Celera watched the aftermath in stunned silence. They could have killed them, she said quietly. Eli nodded, yes. But they didn't. No. Why? Eli's voice was soft, serious. Because then they'd call us monsters. He turned to her. This way they call us unpredictable. Celera's eyes widened, understanding dawning. That's more dangerous. Eli smiled, much more. The Kevi Council panicked. Pressure mounted from within, smaller clans broke ranks, trade slowed to a crawl, allies questioned their loyalty. And Celera, once discarded, left to die, became a symbol. Not of rebellion, of choice. Later, Eli found her standing alone in the observation bay, staring at the stars. You okay? He asked. She took a slow breath. My people are changing, she said quietly, and they hate me for it. Eli leaned against the wall. Yeah, he said, that happens when someone survives what they weren't supposed to. She turned to him, what happens next? Eli's expression grew serious. Vassen won't stop. He'll try one last thing, something big, something brutal. Celera's jaw tightened. Then let him come. Eli smiled, proud. That's the spirit. Far away, in the shadow of the iron moons, Vassen stood before a massive structure. An ancient weapon platform, long forbidden by treaty. He placed his hand on its cold, dark surface. Engines hummed to life beneath his palm. If humans want a lesson, he growled, I will give them one written in fire. And for the first time since humanity reached the stars, an entire sector held its breath. Because the final choice was coming. Not just for Celera, but for everyone who believed a life could be owned. Humans fight differently. War was supposed to look like fire and blood. That's what every species in the galaxy understood. When conflict came, ships exploded, soldiers died, planets burned. Victory belonged to whoever had the biggest guns and the coldest hearts. The Kevi had fought wars for centuries. They knew the rules. Humans broke every single one. The human fleet didn't retreat, didn't fortify positions, didn't prepare for the inevitable battle everyone expected. Instead, they scattered. Like seeds on the wind. Kevi tactical officers watched their sensors in confusion. Human ships peeled away from Karos 9 in every direction. No formation, no coordination, no defensive pattern. To trained military minds, it looked like chaos. It looked like panic. It looked like exactly what Commander Vassen wanted to see. But Celera, standing on the bridge of the Cinder Knife, saw something different in Captain Mara's eyes. Purpose. They think we're running, Celera said quietly. Mara didn't look away from the tactical display. Her fingers danced across holographic controls, routing commands to ships across the sector. Good, Mara said. Let them think that. Eli leaned against a console, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold with a small smile. Fear makes people stupid, he said. Confidence makes them blind. And what do humans make them? Celera asked. Eli's smile widened. Confused. The Kevi Council convened in emergency session. The chamber was ancient, carved from black stone, lit by ceremonial flames that had burned for 300 years. Elders sat in a circle, their violet and grey skin catching the flickering light like polished marble. At the center stood Commander Vassan. His armor was immaculate now, repaired, polished, but rage lived behind his eyes like a caged animal. The humans scatter like frightened prey, one elder said, satisfaction dripping from every word. Another nodded, their interference has failed, they realize they cannot win. But Vassan said nothing. He stared at the tactical projection hovering above the chamber floor, watching human ships split into dozens of directions. Something felt wrong. An older elder, the council speaker, ancient even by Kevi standards, leaned forward. Commander, pursue them, end this humiliation. Vassan's jaw tightened. With respect, council speaker, humans don't run. The chamber fell silent. Then what are they doing? The speaker demanded. Vassan's eyes narrowed. I don't know, and that concerns me. The answer came 12 hours later. Not with explosions. With messages. Thousands of them. Across the sector, on trade stations, neutral colonies, diplomatic channels, even civilian communication networks, human broadcasts appeared. Video footage, medical reports, legal documents, eyewitness testimonies. All of it about Celira. Her beating, her refusal, her attempted execution. But more than that, evidence of other cases, other women, other forced bondings, other disappearances that the Kevi elders had buried in official silence for decades. Names, dates, locations, all laid bare. On the bridge of the Cinder Knife, Celira watched the broadcasts spread like wildfire across the sector. Her hands covered her mouth. How did you get all this? She whispered. Captain Mara stood beside her, arms folded, watching the data streams with quiet satisfaction. We asked, Mara said simply. Celira blinked, asked who? Everyone who wanted to talk, but was too afraid. Eli stepped forward, datapad in hand. Turns out, when you give people a platform and promise protection, they talk, a lot. He showed Celira the screen. Hundreds of messages, testimonies from Kevi citizens, traders, servants, even low-ranking clan members. All sharing stories the elders had tried to erase. You weaponized their own people, Celira's voice shook. Mara shook her head. No, we gave them a voice. The Kevi system erupted. Not with violence, with questions. Trade guilds demanded investigations. Neutral species called for oversight. Smaller clans, ones who had always been beneath the Iron Moons in power, began speaking openly for the first time in generations. Is this true? How many others? Who authorized this? The Council of Elders issued denials, called it propaganda, lies spread by outsiders who didn't understand Kevi culture. But the evidence was everywhere. And it was backed by humans who had already proven they could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. Commander Vassan stood alone in his war room aboard his flagship. Screens surrounded him, each one showed a different crisis. Trade routes closing, alliances fraying, clan leaders questioning orders, protests on 3 colony worlds. His second-in-command entered cautiously. Commander, the council is calling for you. Vassan didn't turn, his eyes stayed locked on the screens. They're not fighting us, he said quietly. So, the humans, Vassan's voice was cold, bitter, they're not fighting us. His second-in-command hesitated. Then, what are they doing? Vassan's fists clenched. They're making us fight ourselves. On a neutral station, 3-star systems away, a young Kevi clerk named Theranos sat in a dimly lit room. In front of him was a human woman, no uniform, no weapons, just a recording device and kind eyes. Tell me what you saw, she said gently. The Ranos' hands trembled. I processed the execution orders for Celira, for others before her. His voice cracked. I thought it was legal, I thought it was right, but when I saw her face on the broadcasts, alive, I realized. He looked up, tears in his eyes. I realized I helped them murder people for choosing freedom. The human woman nodded slowly. Thank you for telling the truth, she said. That takes courage. She stood. We'll make sure people hear you. Back aboard the Cinder Knife, Celira sat alone in the observation bay. The stars outside were beautiful, cold, indifferent. But inside, something burned. Eli found her there an hour later. You're thinking too loud, he said, sitting beside her. Celira didn't smile. This is working. Yeah. People are listening. They are. The elders are losing control. Slowly, but yes. Celira turned to him. Her eyes were haunted. Then why do I feel like this isn't over? Eli sighed, leaned back. Because men like Vassan don't surrender power. They burn it before they let it go. Silence stretched between them. What will he do? Celira asked. Eli's cybernetic eye flickered, processing, calculating. Something desperate, he said quietly, something that forces everyone to choose sides. The message came 2 days later. A formal challenge, broadcast across every channel in the sector. Commander Vassan's face filled screens everywhere. His expression was carved from stone. His voice was ice and fire. Humans of the Cinder Knife, you have poisoned minds with lies. You have broken sacred laws. You have stolen what belongs to the Kevi people. He paused. I challenge you ship to ship, warrior to warrior. If you win, the female goes free. If I win, she returns, and your interference ends. His eyes burned. Unless you are cowards who hide behind words. The transmission ended. On the bridge, Captain Mara stared at the blank screen. Well, she said, that's bold. Eli snorted, that's stupid. Celira stepped forward, heart pounding. You can't accept, it's a trap. Mara turned to her, of course it's a trap. Then, but it's also an opportunity. Celira blinked, how? Mara's smile was razor sharp. Because he thinks we'll fight the way he expects. She turned to her crew. Prep the response, we're accepting his challenge. Eli pushed off the console, grinning. Oh, this is going to be fun. The response broadcast went out 1 hour later. Captain Mara's face appeared on every screen Vassan's challenge had reached. Her voice was calm, professional, almost bored. Commander Vassan, we accept your challenge. She paused. With one condition. Across the sector, millions watched. The fight will be broadcast, live, to every system in this sector. No censorship, no delays, everyone watches. Her eyes glinted. Let the galaxy decide who's right. The transmission ended. In his war room, Vassan stared at the screen. His second-in-command looked nervous. Sir, if we broadcast this and lose. We won't lose, Vassan snapped. But doubt lived in his voice. Because for the first time, he realized something terrifying. Humans didn't fight to win. They fought to teach. And the lesson was about to begin. Far away, Celira stood at the viewport, watching stars drift past. Eli joined her. You okay? He asked. She took a deep breath. They're going to fight for me, maybe die for me. Eli shook his head. No, they're fighting for something bigger. Celira looked at him. What? Eli's voice was quiet, steady. The idea that no one should be property, ever. He smiled. You're just the reason they're saying it out loud. Outside, human ships began moving into position. Not for battle, for performance. And the galaxy leaned forward to watch. The trap springs. Commander Vasson believed he was hunting prey. He was wrong. He was teaching the galaxy why humans were the most dangerous species ever to leave their poisoned, war-torn planet. The shuttle drifted in the black like a dying bird. Its hull was scorched, engines flickering, distress beacons screaming into the void on a loop, human frequency, emergency protocol, requesting immediate assistance. It tumbled slowly through space near an abandoned mining outpost on the edge of the Kevi system. Alone, vulnerable, perfect. On the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Sovereign, Commander Vasson stared at the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Life signs, he demanded. His scanner officer leaned over her console. Confirmed, 3 humans, weak signals, life support failing. Vasson's smile was sharp, hungry. They sent a rescue mission, he said, and we caught it before they could run. His second-in-command shifted nervously. Commander, it seems too convenient. Because they're desperate, Vasson snapped. They scattered their fleet, and now they're vulnerable. This is what happens when you fight without discipline. He turned to his tactical officer. Move to intercept. Prepare boarding teams. I want those humans alive. The officer hesitated. Sir, Captain Cade specifically requested this fight be broadcast. Which is why we'll board their shuttle first, Vasson interrupted. We'll capture humans, humiliate them, then we'll broadcast their surrender. He leaned forward, eyes glinting. Let the galaxy watch them beg. Aboard the Cinder Knife, 3 star systems away, Eli Ward stared at the holographic display. He watched Vasson's flagship move toward the shuttle like a predator circling wounded prey. He's taking the bait, Eli said quietly. Captain Mara stood beside him, arms folded, face unreadable. Good. Celera stood behind them, heart pounding. There are people on that shuttle. No, Mara said calmly. There were people on that shuttle. They evacuated 10 minutes ago. What Vasson is chasing is a ghost. Celera blinked. Then what's inside? Eli's cybernetic eye flickered. His smile was cold. A lesson. The Iron Sovereign closed in. Vasson's boarding team assembled in the airlock, 12 elite Kevi warriors in full combat armor. Shock spears charged, plasma shields active. They were trained to breach starships, fight in zero gravity, and subdue targets without killing them. They were the best. And they were about to learn why humans didn't play fair. The airlock clamped onto the shuttle's hull with a metallic clang. Plasma cutters ignited, carving through the outer door in seconds. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The door collapsed inward. The team stormed inside, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Empty corridor. Emergency lights flickered red, alarms still wailing. Clear, the team leader barked, moving forward. They pushed deeper into the shuttle, methodical, professional. Checking every corner, every room. Nothing. No crew, no resistance, no humans. Just silent corridors and the hollow echo of their boots. The team leader activated his comm. Commander, the shuttle is abandoned, no hostiles present. Vasson's voice crackled through. Life signs were confirmed, find them. Sir, the readings may have been false. Find them. The team pushed toward the cargo hold. The doors hissed open. And inside, nothing. Just an empty room, bare walls, a few supply crates, emergency foam in the corners. And in the center of the floor, a small black device, no bigger than a fist, blinking red. The team leader froze. Commander. The shuttle exploded. Not outward, inward. The device activated in a flash of blue-white light, space bent, reality twisted. A controlled singularity, contained, precise, temporary, formed at the heart of the shuttle. Gravity collapsed inward like a fist clenching around paper. The boarding team didn't even have time to scream. The shuttle imploded, metal folded, walls crushed, everything inside compacted into a sphere of warped spacetime no larger than a coffin. And then, silence. On the bridge of the Iron Sovereign, alarms screamed. "Commander, the boarding team gone, they're just gone." Vasson lunged toward the sensor display. "What do you mean, gone?" No life signs, no debris, the shuttle collapsed in on itself, some kind of gravity weapon. Vasson's blood ran cold. "Get me visual." The main screen shifted. Where the shuttle had been, now floated a small, perfect sphere, smooth, dark, pulsing faintly. A prison made of bent spacetime. His warriors weren't dead. They were trapped. Across the sector, on every station, every ship, every colony with a working receiver, human broadcasts lit up simultaneously. Captain Mara Cade's face appeared, calm, professional, almost bored. "This is Captain Mara Cade of the human vessel Cinder Knife." She paused, letting the silence settle. "What you just witnessed was a demonstration, not an attack." Her eyes were ice. "The Kevi boarding team trapped in that singularity field is alive, unharmed. They will be released in exactly 12 hours. Another pause. "We could have killed them, we chose not to." Her voice dropped, hard, final. "We can do worse, we choose restraint, remember that." The transmission ended. Chaos erupted. On neutral stations, species who had watched the broadcast stared in stunned silence. On Kevi worlds, citizens whispered in fear. On trade ships, captains began rerouting away from the conflict zone. Because the message was unmistakable. Humans could strike anywhere. Humans could stop anytime. Humans weren't playing by the rules. And that was terrifying. Aboard the Iron Sovereign, Vasson stood frozen. His bridge crew stared at him, waiting for orders. But he had none, because everything he understood about war had just been shattered. His elite warriors gone, not killed, not defeated. Humiliated. Captured without firing a shot. And broadcast for the galaxy to see. His second-in-command spoke carefully. "Commander, orders." Vasson's fists clenched so hard his knuckles cracked. "Fire on the sphere," he said quietly. "So." "Fire on it," Vasson roared. "Destroy it, get my warriors out." Weapons charged. Plasma cannons locked onto the sphere. Fire. Brilliant green energy lanced through space, striking the singularity field dead center. And nothing happened. The energy bent around the sphere, refracted, redirected harmlessly into space. The sphere pulsed once, mocking. It's redirecting our weapons," the tactical officer whispered. Vasson stared, disbelief turning to rage. "How?" No one answered. Because no one knew. Aboard the Cinder Knife, Celera watched the Iron Sovereign fire uselessly at the sphere. "They can't get them out," she said quietly. Eli nodded, "Not without us releasing them." "You made them helpless." "Yes." Celera turned to him. "They could have died. You chose to spare them." Eli met her gaze. His voice was serious. "Because if we killed them, Vasson becomes a martyr, his warriors become heroes, and we become monsters." He gestured at the screen. "But this makes him look weak, his warriors look captured, and we look merciful." Celera's breath caught. "That's more dangerous." "Much more," Eli said, "because now everyone's asking the same question." "What question?" "If humans can do this, what else can they do?" The Kevi Council convened in emergency session. The ancient chamber was chaos, elders shouting, clan leaders arguing, advisors panicking. The humans have technology we don't understand. They made fools of our best warriors. Trade routes are collapsing. Smaller clans are rebelling. The council speaker slammed his staff against the stone floor. Silence. The chamber stilled. The speaker turned his ancient eyes toward Commander Vassan, who stood at the center like a man facing execution. You promised us victory, the speaker hissed. You promised the humans would be crushed. Vassan's jaw tightened. They fight without honor. They fight without rules, another elder snapped, and that makes them unpredictable. Then we use the world breaker, Vassan said coldly. The chamber went silent. No one moved, no one breathed. The world breaker. An ancient weapon platform, forbidden by treaty, powerful enough to crack moons, to sterilize planets, to end entire fleets in one devastating strike. It had been sealed for 2 centuries. You would break the compact, the speaker whispered. Vassan's eyes burned. The humans broke it first when they interfered in our laws. Silence. Then slowly, the speaker nodded. Activate the world breaker. Far away in the shadow of the iron moons, ancient systems stirred. Deep beneath the surface of the largest moon, reactors that had been dormant for 200 years began to hum. Lights flickered to life in forgotten corridors. And at the heart of it all, a weapon older than most governments awakened. Aboard the Cinder Knife, alarms screamed. Captain, energy spike detected near the iron moons. Mara's eyes snapped to the sensor display. What kind of spike? Massive reactor class, old, very old. Eli swore under his breath, they didn't. Mara's face went pale, they did. Celera looked between them, what is it? Eli turned to her, expression grave. The world breaker, a weapon from the old wars, banned, sealed, supposed to never be used again. His cybernetic eye flickered, processing tactical data. It can wipe out our entire fleet in one shot. Celera's blood ran cold, then we have to run. Mara shook her head slowly. No, Captain. We don't run, Mara said firmly, because if we run, every tyrant in the galaxy learns that threatening genocide works. She turned to her crew. All ships scatter protocol, now. Celera's voice shook. That's suicide. Eli smiled, small, sharp. No, he said, that's teaching. And as human ships began to move across the sector in patterns that made no tactical sense, the galaxy held its breath. Because the real lesson was about to begin. The forbidden weapon. There are weapons designed to destroy ships, weapons designed to crack planets, and then there are weapons designed to end hope itself. The Worldbreaker was the third kind. Deep beneath the surface of the largest iron moon, in chambers carved from ancient stone and reinforced with alloys that predated interstellar travel, something stirred. Lights flickered along corridors that hadn't seen illumination in 2 centuries. Dust trembled on control panels. Air vents hissed as atmosphere flooded into sealed sections. The weapon platform had been built during the Kevi's darkest age, when their empire stretched across 20 systems and crushed rebellion not with soldiers, but with terror. The Worldbreaker had ended 3 separate wars by simply existing. The threat alone was enough to make entire species surrender. It had been fired exactly twice. Both times, colonies ceased to exist. After the Compact, the treaty that brought tentative peace to the sector, the Kevi had sealed the platform, promised it would never wake again. But promises, like treaties, were just words. And Commander Vassan had run out of patience for words. He stood on the command dais now, staring at the massive sphere of energy forming between the platform's prongs. It pulsed, grew, breathed like something alive. The weapon drew power from reactors buried deep in the moon's core, reactors that could power a city for a century. All of that energy was being channeled into a single, focused point. A point aimed at the human fleet. Around him, technicians worked frantically. Officers barked reports. Screens displayed targeting data and energy readings climbing into ranges that shouldn't be possible. Target locked, the weapons officer reported, voice tight with fear. Human fleet, all vessels. Vassen's second-in-command stepped forward, face pale. Commander, if we fire this weapon, we violate every interstellar compact. Even our allies will. They will fear us, Vassen snapped, whirling on him, and fear is obedience. His eyes burned with rage and desperation. The humans poisoned our people's minds. They made us look weak. They trapped our warriors like animals in a cage for the galaxy to mock. His voice dropped, cold, final. No more. He turned back to the weapon. Fire! Across the sector, alarms screamed. On trade stations, military outposts, civilian colonies, diplomatic channels. Every sensor in 50 light years registered the same thing. Catastrophic energy signature detected. On the bridge of the Cinder Knife, Captain Mara Cade stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then she moved. All ships, execute scatter protocol now. Her crew erupted into coordinated chaos. Cinder Knife breaking orbit. Razor Wind acknowledging, moving to Vector 7. Silent Echo jumping to coordinates. Eli grabbed a console as the ship lurched. We can't outrun that thing. Mara's jaw was set. We're not trying to. Celera clung to a railing, heart slamming against her ribs. Then what are we doing? Mara's eyes were ice. Vanishing. The world breaker fired. Space itself bent. A wave of annihilating force erupted from the weapon platform, pure, condensed destruction. It tore through the void like a crack in reality itself. Asteroids in its path simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized, erased. Radiation, debris, even light bent and twisted around the beam. It was a weapon designed by a species that had learned to hate so efficiently they could weaponize physics itself. The beam screamed across space toward where the human fleet had been. And hit. Nothing. On the Iron Moon platform, the weapons officer stared at his screen in disbelief. Targets are gone. Vassen's head snapped toward him. What? All human ships gone, no debris, no energy signatures, they just vanished. That's impossible, Vassen roared. Scan again. The officer's hands trembled over the controls. Scanning, Commander, they're not there, they're not anywhere. Vassen stared at the tactical display. Empty space. The humans had simply disappeared. Then, lights. All across the Kevi system. Not physical lights. Signal lights. On the command dais, Vassen's personal console blinked, then another, then another. Commander, we're receiving transmissions. From who? The communications officer's face went pale. From everywhere. Human signals appeared simultaneously across the entire Kevi system. Not just military channels. Everywhere. Inside government networks, financial systems, communication grids, medical databases, educational archives, entertainment feeds, even personal devices. Billions of screens lit up at once. And on every single one, a message. Simple, clear, translated into every language. We are here, we see you, we choose restraint. Panic exploded. On Kevi homeworld, citizens stared at their devices in horror. In government buildings, security teams scrambled to shut down networks, but the signals were already inside, embedded everywhere. On military ships, officers tried to purge their systems, but nothing worked. Because the humans weren't using viruses. They were using connectivity. Aboard a civilian transport in orbit above Kevi Prime, a young mother stared at her datapad. The message blinked, then shifted. New text appeared. Your government just fired a weapon banned by treaty. Here is the proof. Video footage played. Commander Vasson giving the order, the weapon charging, the compact violations documented in excruciating detail. Then timestamps, signatures, authorization codes from the Council of Elders themselves. Evidence. Undeniable, unedited, real. The woman's hands trembled. She looked at her child sleeping beside her. And she began to forward the message. Within minutes, the truth spread like wildfire. Not just among the Kevi. Everywhere. Neutral species saw the evidence, trade guilds saw it, diplomatic corps saw it, independent colonies saw it. The Iron Moons had fired a forbidden weapon first. Not in defense. In vengeance. On the Iron Moon platform, Vasson stared at the screens surrounding him. Each one showed a different crisis. Protests erupting on 3 Kevi worlds, trade vessels refusing docking permissions, clan leaders broadcasting public condemnations, allies severing communication. How, Vasson screamed, how did they do this? A technician's voice was barely a whisper. Commander, they're inside our systems, all of them. Then purge them. We can't, they're not attacking, they're watching, recording, transmitting. Vasson's second-in-command spoke quietly. Sir, the platform, the weapon, it's... What? Offline. Vasson froze. What did you say? The tactical officer's voice shook. The Worldbreaker is offline, reactor output dropping, weapon systems unresponsive. Fix it. We are trying, but the control systems, they've been rewritten. Vasson's blood turned to ice. Rewritten. Human code, embedded deep in the operating system. We can't remove it without shutting down the entire platform. Vasson stared at the dead weapon. The humans hadn't destroyed it. They'd neutered it. Made it useless. Made him useless. Across the sector, Captain Mara Cade's voice broadcast on every channel. Her face appeared, calm, professional, unstoppable. This ends now. She paused. Stand down, Commander Vasson. Stand down, Kevi Council. Her eyes were steel. You fired a forbidden weapon. We have proof. The galaxy has proof. If you continue, every species in this sector will unite against you. Another pause. We did not come here to conquer. We came because someone needed help, and when you tried to kill us for it, we didn't kill you back. Her voice dropped, quiet, final. Humans do not win by force. We win by making violence obsolete. The transmission held for one more moment. The next move is yours. Choose carefully. The screen went dark. Celera stood on the bridge of the cinder knife, tears streaming down her face. You didn't destroy them, she whispered. Eli stood beside her. No. You could have. Yes. Why didn't you? Eli turned to her. His voice was soft, serious. Because destroying them would make us conquerors, and that's what they expected. He gestured at the screens showing chaos across the Kevi system. This makes us something they can't fight. What's that? Eli smiled, sad, proud. Right. In the council chambers on Kevi Prime, the ancient room was silent. Elders who had ruled with absolute authority for centuries sat like statues. Because for the first time in their long lives, they had no power. The council speaker's hands trembled on his staff. Send the command, he whispered. What command? Another elder asked, voice hollow. The speaker closed his eyes. Stand down. On the Iron Moon platform, Vasson received the order. His fists clenched, his jaw locked. Around him, his crew waited. And slowly, slowly, he raised his hand. "Power down," he said quietly. "So, power down the platform." The weapon's energy sphere flickered, dimmed, died. The ancient engines went silent. Hours later, human ships began to reappear. Not all at once, one by one. Emerging from hiding places no one had thought to check. Asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, the shadows of moons. They hadn't run. They'd hidden. And while hidden, they'd worked. Mapping systems, planting code, recording evidence, building the case that would dismantle an empire without firing a shot. Celera stood at the viewport, watching the human fleet regroup. Eli joined her. "It's over," she said quietly. Eli shook his head. "No, it's changed." "What happens to me now?" Eli looked at her, really looked. "Whatever you choose." Far away, Commander Vasson sat alone in a bare chamber. Guards approached, not his warriors. Neutral peacekeepers. He was being arrested, stripped of command, charged with treaty violations. For the first time in his life. No one bowed. And across the galaxy, a quiet truth began to settle in. Humanity had not won by destroying an empire. They had won by refusing to become one. And the most terrifying part, they had done it without firing a single shot. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Because now everyone was watching. And humanity had just shown the galaxy what happened when you underestimated them. The final chapter was about to be written. And this time, everyone would remember it. The final choice. The galaxy didn't explode into celebration. That was the part no one expected. There were no parades through the streets, no monuments raised, no songs sung about the great human victory. Because it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the moment after a storm passes, when the air is still heavy, the ground is soaked, and everyone knows the damage hasn't been fully counted yet. The humans didn't claim territory, didn't demand tribute, didn't plant flags or redraw borders. They simply stayed long enough to make sure the door they'd opened couldn't be closed again. 3 weeks after the Worldbreaker fell silent, Celera stood before the Council of Clans one final time. Not as a prisoner, not as property, as a witness. The chamber was the same, ancient black stone, ceremonial flames flickering in bronze holders, elders seated in their traditional circle. But something fundamental had shifted. The air felt different, thinner, less certain. Because for the first time in 300 years, the elders knew they were being watched. Thousands of cameras, human, neutral species, independent journalists lined the walls, broadcasting live to every corner of the sector. Transparency wasn't a choice anymore. It was a requirement. Celera stood at the center of the circle. Her injuries had healed enough for her to walk unaided, though the scars remained. She didn't hide them. They made her words heavier. "You cannot undo what you did," she said. Her voice was calm, clear, unshaken. The elders stared, some with shame, some with barely concealed rage. "But you can decide what you do next," Celera continued. The council speaker, ancient, diminished, no longer untouchable, leaned forward. "What would you have us do?" His voice was bitter, defeated. Celera met his gaze without flinching. "Choose to be better, not because humans forced you, not because you're afraid, but because your own people deserve more than fear." Silence. One elder, younger than the others, representing a minor clan, stood slowly. "I propose we suspend forced bonding laws, immediately." Another elder hissed, "That is tradition." "Tradition," the younger elder interrupted, voice rising, "that just cost us our reputation, our trade agreements, and our authority." He looked around the chamber. The humans didn't break us, we broke ourselves by clinging to laws that treated people like objects. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The council speaker raised his staff, but the sound was weak, hollow. The vote will proceed. Hours later, the results were announced. Forced bonding laws suspended. Clan authority over personal choice limited. Independent courts established under interstellar oversight approved. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't justice. But it was possible. And possibility, Celera had learned, was humanity's real weapon. When Celera returned to the cinder knife, Eli was waiting near the hangar bay, leaning against a supply crate like he had all the time in the world. "You just rewrote history," he said casually. Celera exhaled slowly. "I didn't do it alone." Eli shrugged. "You did the hard part, you survived." She looked at him, really looked, at the scarred armor, the patched sleeve, the cybernetic eye that had seen too much. "Why do humans do this?" she asked quietly. "Do what?" "Show up for people you don't know, risk everything for strangers." Eli was quiet for a moment, then he smiled, soft, real. "Because a long time ago, when Earth was burning and humanity was dying, someone showed up for us. Not because they had to, because they chose to." His voice dropped. "We never forgot that feeling, so now when we see someone drowning, we jump in." Celera felt tears sting her eyes. "Even if it costs you." "Especially if it costs us," Eli said, "because that's how you prove it matters." One by one, human ships began to depart. Not all at once, not in formation. They slipped away quietly, back to trade routes, exploration zones, forgotten corners of space where no one else bothered to look. They left no garrisons, no occupation forces, no governors or overseers. Just records, evidence, documentation, and a reputation. Species across the sector took notice. Not because humans were the strongest, but because they were the most inconvenient to tyrants. On a neutral station 3 systems away, a young Kevi woman named Sarath watched the broadcasts. She had been engaged to a clan leader twice her age. A match arranged before she was born. She had never questioned it. Until now. She stood in front of the communication terminal for 10 minutes, heart pounding, hands shaking. Then she typed, "I refuse," and hit send. On a mining colony in the Outer Rim, a foreman who had beaten workers for missing quotas found himself facing a sudden investigation. Anonymous reports, video evidence, testimony from laborers who had been silent for years. The investigators were neutral species, but everyone knew who had taught them to look. On a diplomatic vessel, an ambassador who had accepted bribes to ignore trafficking found her accounts frozen. Financial records leaked, transactions exposed. No one claimed responsibility. But the code signature was human. Stories spread. Whispered at first, then spoken aloud, then broadcast. If you are crushed, if you are silenced, if you are left for dead, there is a chance, small, stubborn, dangerous, that a human will notice. And if they do, they won't ask who owns you. They won't ask what laws say you deserve. They will ask only one thing. Did you choose this? And if the answer is no, the universe itself may have to change. 6 months later, Celera stood on the observation deck of a neutral freighter. She wore simple clothes now, no clan markings, no symbols of rank. Just herself. She was traveling, speaking at councils, testifying before courts, sharing her story on stations where people had never heard a voice like hers. Making sure what happened to her never happened quietly again. Eli had been right. She made enemies. Clan leaders who called her a traitor, elders who wanted her silenced, commanders who saw her as a threat. But she also made allies. People who had been silent too long, who had stories no one wanted to hear, who had been waiting for someone to say the first no so they could say it too. On the freighter's bridge, the captain, a grizzled human with more scars than teeth, handed her a datapad. Message for you, coded, human frequency. Celira's heart jumped. She opened it. Heard you're doing good work. Proud of you, EW. She smiled, then noticed a second line. P.S. If you ever need backup, you know how to call. Humans don't travel alone, remember. She did. Far away on a forgotten mining world, a distress signal activated. Weak, desperate, barely coherent. A survey ship, human-made, picked it up. The captain studied the signal, then looked at his crew. Change course, someone needs help. His second officer frowned. Sir, we're 3 days off schedule, and that system is dangerous. The captain smiled. Then it's a good thing we are human. The ship turned. Because that's what humanity did. They didn't build empires. They didn't claim dominion. They didn't conquer. They noticed. And when they noticed someone in trouble, someone being crushed, silenced, erased, they showed up. Not because it was profitable. Not because it was safe. Because it was right. And across the galaxy, tyrants learned a terrifying truth. Humanity never fights for power. They fight for the right to say no. And that is the most dangerous force in the universe. Because you can kill soldiers. You can destroy ships. You can silence voices. But you cannot kill an idea once it spreads. And the idea humanity carried with them wherever they went was simple. You are not property. You are not a tool. You are a person. And your life is yours to choose. Celira stood at the viewport, watching stars drift past. Somewhere out there, another person was being crushed, another voice was being silenced, another life was being erased. But somewhere else, a human was noticing. And that changed everything. She pressed her hand against the cold glass and whispered the words that had saved her life. I refuse. The end. But not really. Because this story, this fight, would never truly end. As long as there were people who believed they could own others. There would be humans who refused to let them. As long as there were those who crushed the weak. There would be humans who lifted them up. As long as there were tyrants who ruled by fear. There would be humans who fought with hope. Not because they were perfect. Not because they were saints. But because they remembered what it felt like to be powerless. And they had decided, long ago, on a dying planet beneath a poisoned sky, that no one should feel that way ever again. So they traveled. They listened. They noticed. And when they found someone like Celira, broken, abandoned, left to die for the crime of choosing herself, they did the most human thing possible. They said, I've got you. And they meant it. Somewhere in the galaxy, a distress signal activates. Somewhere a human changes course. Somewhere a life is about to change forever. Because humans don't travel alone. And they never ignore someone who needs help. That's not a weakness. That's humanity's greatest strength. End.